Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, buongiorno, buonasera, dzień dobry, dobry wieczór, jak and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you may be. Second video, short video of the day. It is May 21st, and this is a celebratory video. We do have some very, very good news, exceptionally good news, I would say. And I thank the Lord Lugworm channel for bringing my attention to this news, because otherwise I would have missed it. The very good news in my book is that I think we can safely say that the Jay's Law petition is finally dead and buried. The last nail in the coffin of Jay's Law petition has been hammered in. And I'll explain why. Until a few days ago, all that remained regarding the Jay's Law petition, remember that failed, horrendously failed petition that only managed to get 18,000 odd signatures, the only thing that remained was a final government response. Once a petition reaches 10,000, parliamentary petition, once it reaches 10,000, it gets a government response. So the initial government response had already been out there. And basically that initial government response was that Jay's petition or Jay's law is not going to be introduced because what it's calling for is already covered in existing legislation. That was it. The government response was basically, we get where you're coming from, but what you're proposing already exists in law. And of course, that response didn't please the likes of Debbie Duncan, the likes of Ross Miller, Weasel Miller, the likes of Sarah Smith. They weren't happy with that. The accident group in general were not happy with that. The last thing they expected and wanted was the government to say, you're wasting your time. What you're asking for already exists in legislation. And so, in rather panicked mode, accident group, Debbie Duncan, and all her sycophantic followers, they asked for a second answer. They wanted a revised government response. In the 1 in a million hope the government are going to suddenly change their mind and say, oh, yeah, we gave you a response that was wrong. Let us change our mind. So it was a Hail Mary pass. It was one of those things, let's just cling to the serpent in the water, if you like, our last hope. We've got to get something out of the government for this. Now, I was checking daily, fairly recently, to see what that revised government response might be. I fully expected it to be the government saying, we've already told you, listen, listen. We've already given you our answer. Jay's law's going nowhere. But I was curious. And then I forgot to check every day. And then all of a sudden today I had a look at Lord Lugworm's channel, and he's put out that this revised government response came on May 14th. Wow, that was a week ago. I have been remiss. I missed it. So I was very eager to see this government response. Obviously, I was going to say no interest. That's not true. I didn't want to rely on Lord Lugworm's interpretation of the government response. I don't think Lord Lugworm is in any position to interpret anything the government says. In my book, if you can't master the apostrophe in English language, you're not going to understand a government response. And that has panned out to be truthful. El Slugtardo no comprende una respuesta del gobierno. He doesn't understand a government response, is it? So I wanted to go to the actual government response. And this is the devastating blow for Jay's law. In essence, what it says in this revised response is that the Online Safety Act of 2023 covers everything. Jay's law is not going to be introduced simply because there's nothing new in Jay's law that needs to be introduced. And actually, what I should do is try to pull the exact wording up. Just give me a second here, because I believe I have it on file here somewhere. This should be it. Here it is. DSIT, this is the government's revised response. DSIT are acting to removing this content. It's not very good English for a government response. DSIT are acting to removing this content. We are doing this through the approach set out in the OSA. The OSA is the Online Safety Act. So that's the response. That is the response. I'll read it through again. DSIT, Department of Science, Innovation and Technology, are acting to removing this content, meaning the content that, offends the grieving family. In other words, we're already dealing with this. Yeah. Are acting means we're doing it now. We're already doing this, Luggy. We're already doing this, Debbie. We're already doing this, Sarah Smith. We're already doing this, Shane Yerrell. It's already a thing. You're campaigning for something that already happens, is what it's saying. We are doing this through the approach set out in the OSA. We're doing this based on the Online Safety Act 2023. That's all you need to know, actually. It repeats what the Online Safety Act says. The government response reprints everything that's in the Online Safety Act, really rubbing the noses of the accident group in the fact that it's already covered. You've wasted your time. But it does sum up the reality. Here's the reality that already exists. Legally, platforms must tackle disinformation that's illegal or abusive to children. You'll get that. Duties coming into effect mean large services must also remove content against their terms of service, which again already happens. You've got, for example, YouTube has its terms of service. TikTok has its terms of service. So we're already in this situation where legally these platforms must remove anything illegal, against their terms of service, including where they ban organized misinformation that targets grieving families after tragic deaths. In other words, all of this information, misinformation, disinformation that targets grieving families, that's already included in legislation that says platforms right now, as part of their terms of service, must remove that. So there's nothing changed. There is absolutely nothing in the Jay's Law petition proposals, nothing at all, that lies outside of the OSA. In other words, this government response is exactly as this revised government response is just a more detailed answer from the first government response that says existing legislation covers this. You're wasting your time. There we go. But I will turn briefly to what Ivor Lovelace has to say about this. In his post, and I recommend you go read it, he's not grasped any of this at all. Lord Lugworm says, nothing failed then. Government are acting. Now, Luggy, you clearly misunderstood the government's answer. It's the other way round, Lord Lugworm. Everything has failed for you. This is dead. It's completely failed. The government response says they are not acting. The government response is clear that their approach is through the existing 2023 Online Safety Act. There's no mention of Jay's Law in the whole of the response. It is dead. And it does amuse me, Lord Lugwin, when you say government are acting. Which government would that be? Would that be the government headed by Keir Starmer? How long do you think that's going to last? Or maybe you're talking about the future government that may be headed by, well, I don't know, Wes Streeting, or Angela Rayner, or Andy Burnham. When you say government are acting, Is it the about to be government with all the reshuffle and all that that's going to happen? Or is it the lame duck government of Keir Starmer that is stumbling along until its inevitable decapitation? Which government are you referring to here, Lord Luggan, when you say government are acting? Because to be honest, with the Makersfield by-election coming up, I don't think we're going to hear Andy Burnham say the three things that must happen in government so soon are tackling the immigration problem, tackling the cost of living crisis, and we must push through Jay's Law. I just don't see that happening either. But if you do, and your accident group cronies really think Jay's Law is something that the government are acting on, you are not only deluded, you are a lot more stupid than even I thought. And I put you as low-level thinkers right at the bottom. So when Lord Lugworm says nothing failed then, government are acting, this is Luggy 180. This 180 degrees got the wrong idea. And then we got this beaut of a line. Lord Lugworm says, there are still ongoing talks with government over many different aspects of the trolling BS. Really, Lord Lugworm, there are still ongoing talks with the government, really. Who's leading these ongoing talks with the government? Would that be Debbie? Debbie still popping down to Westminster every week to have a chat with some government minister? Really? Would it be Sarah Smith, who recently called for Keir Starmer to leave office? Is dear Sarah Smith, is she having very cosy talks with government ministers that oppose her stance on whether Keir should be Prime Minister or not? Here's the reality. Lord Lugworm and the excellent group. There are no ongoing talks. Not with Debbie, not with Sarah Smith, not with Ross Miller. No one is now talking to any government about anything connected with Jay's Law. It is over. That final nail is in the coffin. Deal with it. I will leave it there. No, I won't. I will just read out, because so far, and you know I'll be keeping an eye on this, so far we have had one reaction that is worth mentioning to Lord Lugworm's post about how successful the Jay's Law situation is with this revised government response, which says we're not doing anything about Jay's Law yet. I would have guessed. The one response so far is from Kaz Alice. Kaz, who wrings her hands at how dreadful a grieving mother could be treated, but then treats a grieving mother in the most horrific terms possible. Yeah, that snivelling hypocrite Kaz Alice, she has something to say. Let's read it out. Karen Morin says, this is great. And of course, with ID verification needed, it will hold the fake profiles accountable for what they are doing. So Kaz Alice has read somewhere in the Online Safety Act something about ID verification needed. I don't think Kaz Alice has realised that everything she read about the Online Safety Act is outside of the Jay's Law petition. It's nothing to do with it. Now, because the government reprinted the whole of the Online Safety Act, Kaz Alice thinks that's something new. It's not. But let's just have a look at what she says here. This is great. And of course, with ID verification needed, it will hold the fake profiles accountable for what they are doing. Fake profiles. Well, I guess my name, Duncan Smith, and I showed you all my passport and I showed you all my residency card. I'm fine. So no fake profile here, eh, Kaz? I'll be absolutely fine, accountable, and still pumping out everything I do every day. So I'm looking pretty good here with this ID verification needed. What about you, Kaz Alice? Oh, turns out Kaz Alice is actually Karen Morin. Looks like you're going to have to give your real name, Kaz. That's not good, or is it? And then we have Lord Lugworm. Lord Lugworm is going to have to give his real name. ID verification needed. Not Lord Lugworm. If Lord Lugworm wants to appear on any channel and give comment, it has to be Ivor Lovelace. That puts the nail in that coffin right there, hey? And Kaz, if it says ID verification needed, I'm guessing that means no Thomas the Great, no Thomas the Wonderful, no Thomas the Terrible, no Thomas the Wanker. Well, Thomas the Wanker will still hang around, but it'll have to be Mark Dearden, won't it? And ID verification needed, Kaz. Well, looks like Jugglers is going to finally tell us Well, what's he going to tell us? That his name is Ros Walmsley, for Christ's sake? I mean, I don't know who benefits from ID verification needed, Kaz, but it ain't your side for sure. I mean, if ID verification needed, I don't know how they're going to verify ID exactly. This is the problem with ID verification. How are you actually going to do it for online platforms? I don't know. But does it mean that fake Melissa, he who has to shave off that 5 o'clock shadow and get rid of the stubble every other day, yeah, Melissa, who changed her profile, his profile, first week of April. Well, Melissa ain't going to be Melissa with ID verification, right, Kaz? So we can have a bit of fun with this because I think it's clear to me, at least, that all the cheering going on, and we'll keep an eye on their comments because the AG don't actually get this, but they're going to be commenting with enthusiasm because Lord Lugworm, yeah, face from Fishguard, yeah, they're going to be commenting with enthusiasm because Twatface from Fishguard thinks this is a victory. It isn't. I'll say it for the last time. This is the nail in the coffin of Jay's law. The revised government response is, it ain't going to happen. Everything you want is in the Online Safety Act of 2023. End of. If I had a can of beer, I would open it to celebrate. I will leave that for another time. All right, Lord Lugworm, enjoy your party. But read the government response carefully. It says, OSA covers everything. You wasted your time, you dullards. Better luck next time. Hasta luego, adios. See you next time.